Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines 2. In today's video, we are taking a look at the new Japan region pack for City Skylines 2, available for free right now on Paradox Mods. This pack includes 4 new zoning types, a whole bunch of service buildings, including a new hospital, amongst others, and 2 new signature buildings that, well, you know what? I could go on and on. Let's just dive in. Let's take a look at them. Let's get to it. So I suppose with everything already laid out, we can make this nice and simple and just have a look at all of the different zoning types that are available in the Japanese region pack for City Skylines 2. And we're going to start here with our low density Japanese housing. Everything here is laid out in a way that hopefully makes sense. The buildings at the front are level 1, the buildings in the middle are level 3, and the buildings at the back are level 5, which is the 3 different stages that you're going to have in terms of building appearance. And from left to right, we're looking at sort of bigger buildings as we go along. And there's something about this Japanese pack that it actually does with a lot of the different building types. Those are medium density residential, and we'll get to those. But something I've noticed that it does is it mirrors a lot of the buildings. So these are 2x2 low density Japanese residential houses. There is a left version and a right version of so many of them, and I love that. There is also a version that's a little bit more generic. It isn't designed to go in a corner on the right or the left. It just goes in the middle. But this is something that I've noticed for a huge amount of this pack. So this is our 2x2 residential zoning. This is a 3x2 set, which uses a lot of the same buildings, and that's something we're going to see in a couple of places, is that the assets are very, very similar, just in larger footprints. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I love that kind of symmetry in a lot of my city design. I think it's something that's very interesting. And I'm also noticing that a lot of this Japanese pack looks like it's going to be perfect to make some really, really great suburbs, especially on this map, which is my Townsville map, where I'm just sort of playing specifically with all of the region packs and the creator packs that are coming out as well. So these are, I believe, our, I want to say either 3x3 or they're 3x3. These are all 3x3 houses. Again, 1, 3, and 5 going back. These guys are a little bit bigger and a little bit more perhaps traditional or stereotypical in terms of its Japanese design. Absolutely love this. I love the hedges. I love the detail. I love the textures that we have going on here as well. And I love seeing cars actually parked in the lot as well. That's not something that every single asset in Cities 2 does. So having it like that is really, really cool. And as we go back, we can see just different upgrades going on. We've got some walls around it now, and then back here it's a little bit more open with a bit more of a unique wall and a nice sort of garage extension at the front there. Anytime you see this going on, this is just the surface getting a little bit weird because of the proximity to these roads. This is a 4x4 asset. This is the standalone version of this size of asset, again going from 5 to 3 and 1 right there. And again, you can see a really clear example with these guys of that mirroring that I was talking about, where you have this guy, you know, to the right, this guy to the left. Again, going, you know, back, it's the same thing. We're adding more floors as the buildings level up. And again, it's the same thing here, adding more floors as the buildings level up and changing the style a little bit with some of them as well. And then at the end of the row, we just have a bunch of miscellaneous sized buildings. This is a 2x4, a 3x5, and I want to say a 4x6 that we have going on. And again, some styles sort of changing a little bit as we go back on these guys. This one rotating a little bit as we go back as well. The footprint getting a little bit bigger for some of them as well, which is fantastic. But all in all, I absolutely love what's going on with all of these Japanese low density residential assets. We're moving into commercial now. I'm not going to go into super detail with all of these. I'm just going to scroll past them so we can get a look at them. And again, you can see that mirroring that I was talking about. Hopefully you can see the layout that I've done with these to show you that we have just a lot of mirrored assets. And honestly, that's great. This kind of building on a corner would look absolutely fantastic. It really, really would. A lot of them really would. And it's kind of cool. The entrances to a lot of these buildings are on the sides, which means they are perfect for your city corners. This one as well has some parking underneath there. I don't know if that's functional. I would imagine that it is. Most parking and most buildings in Cities Skylines 2 that I've noticed seems to actually be functional, which is absolutely fantastic. And then down here, we have, once again, a bunch of miscellaneous, different sized commercial buildings. Again, going from levels 1, 3, and 5 as we go back. And again, we have some examples of little, I want to say 2x3 mirrored assets here, and some relatively generic looking box stores, but there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, these types of assets would be perfect. And this is maybe a little controversial to say, given that it's a Japanese retail pack, and I've spent so much time with the UK region pack, or a Japanese region pack, not retail pack. You could build a retail park, a very UK styled retail park with a whole bunch of these buildings. These would be perfect for that style of retail park. I built one many, many years ago in Cities Skylines 1. I built several in Cities Skylines 1, so you could totally do that with a lot of these assets in this pack. Now this is, I believe, our mixed use zoning. I think I said earlier it was medium density residential. It is not. And we're starting with the various sizes of buildings here. Nothing really crazy going on with these, but again, we're seeing that mirroring going on. These guys are mirrored, these guys are mirrored, and then these guys are standalone. Same thing here, and we have some surfaces misbehaving. That is not a 3x3 unit, that is a 2x3. Again, mirrored going the entire way back. And down here, these are, I want to say these are also miscellaneous buildings. Again, going 1, 3, and 5 as we go back. Some of these are very, very cool looking. I really like these red buildings. I really like these blue buildings. And I like these ones as well. I like the little peaked roof thing there, or I guess the peaked facade at the front of the building, which I don't think at any point turns into an actual peaked roof. I think it is just the facade of the building there, which is totally fine. Now we're moving into the medium density housing. And let me tell you, these guys in particular, very cool. Very interesting looking buildings, really unique looking buildings. Again, designed to go on the corner. So you can have this going down one street. This is the front of the building right here. Honestly, these might be some of the best looking apartment buildings in Cities Skylines 2, especially given that you have this sort of thing going on. Now, they're not, I don't think, advertised as wall-to-wall buildings, and I think technically there is the tiniest little gap there that you can sort of see, but you're never going to see that. So you could build a proper little city block with these style of buildings or the bigger ones, surround it, maybe move the parking out of there, do some detailing with trees and parks and things like that. You could have a lot of fun with a lot of these medium density buildings, and they're pretty reasonably sized for medium density buildings, which is something that I really appreciate. And I'm very excited to play around with these. So now I'd like to take a look at the healthcare category for the Japanese region pack. We're starting with the medical center right here, which is a decent little size. It's got a single upgrade that stays within the footprint of the lot. So you're not attaching this to the outside of the medical center. You're just slapping it on here. And with the upgrade, we're looking at 100 patients, 26 employees, 5 vehicles. That's pretty good for this little medical center. And for its big brother, the Japanese hospital, we are starting with 500 patients. We can upgrade it with a health check center, which is going to give us another 200 patient capacity. It just goes on top like this, which again keeps the upgrade within the footprint of the building, which is absolutely fantastic. It means you could build this in your downtown area, and you're not going to have to worry about taking land away from your people sometime down the line because you want to upgrade your hospital. This next asset is a bit of a weird one. I'm kind of looking at it and expecting it to have upgrades. It is a Japanese recycling center, and clicking on it, there are no upgrades. This is just the recycling center. This is what we're dealing with, which is very odd looking, although in fairness, I know absolutely nothing about Japanese architecture nor Japanese industrial architecture, so this might genuinely be exactly what it looks like. I'm just a little surprised that there's nothing to upgrade it with. At the same time, that's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing to have set up, and it does have little entrances around the side down here and over here, so you could theoretically imagine that vehicles can go in one way, out the other. It's a pretty cool looking asset. It's just I was a little surprised there were no upgrades for it. Our next asset is the Japanese Town Elementary School, which starts with a whole lot of empty space at the back here, but that is all upgradable We have 256 out of 1,000 students in here. I would imagine most of the people in my testing area are going to this elementary school, but 1,000 students as the default capacity is pretty solid. We can go ahead and upgrade this with an extension wing that's going to add an additional 500 student capacity, so we can put it on at the back there. And we do have an elementary gym, which is going to give us +1 well-being within 300 meters and +1 outdoor recreation, which honestly, I think this is a really, really good choice. I think upgrading this really makes it look a little bit less odd. It's definitely weird looking at these buildings, and we will get to the rest of them obviously, but without the upgrades, it's a very, very strange looking plot of land. It really, really is. Obviously, it seems to be designed to be upgraded, but it is a little bit odd. I do like it though. I will say the textures, it might just be my settings, but the textures here seem to change quite consistently as you zoom in. That's just the level of detail changing as we get closer. It is just a green net around the entire thing. And I mean, it's just, you know, level of detail changes as you zoom out. It looks a little bit weird from here, but that's just what's going on with it. And so that naturally brings us to the Japanese Town High School, which has a default student capacity of 800, and that can be upgraded with an extension wing, which is going to bring us from 800 to 1,200. We can also put a high school gym on here, which is +4 well-being within 500 meters and +20 outdoor recreation. And again, I want to say these kind of upgrades are essential for making this thing look a little bit more complete. And again, I know nothing about Japanese architecture, so this might be quite common that you just have these huge, open, sort of gravelly, sandy areas. I have no idea. I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm not trying to criticize. I do really like these assets. I feel like they look a little bit incomplete when you don't have the upgrades on them. But in saying that, I have talked previously about wanting more sports facilities built into and baked into our educational assets. So this is fantastic. This is what I want to see. We have some swimming pools, we have some tennis courts, we have a little soccer field thing, and I'm assuming that this is supposed to also be for baseball. I want to say that's what this is for. So you stand there and that's what the curved line is for. It's like a little baseball diamond thing. That's actually a really cool little layout. Never seen that before. Don't know if it's realistic. I'm assuming it's been inspired by something. So I like that a lot. And so that brings us to the Japanese college, which starts with a default capacity of 10,000 students, which that's a lot. That is a lot of people. And you can increase that with a faculty building. That is going to bring the student capacity up to 10,750. And there's also a cafeteria and store, which is going to give you another 750 spaces. So you can have 11,500 students in this college, which is a really, really imposing building. It really, really is. It looks a little bit more, I'm going to use the word boring. I don't mean it in a bad way. Oh, there's my autosave kicking in. It looks a little bit more boring than it actually is. If you look closely, you can see that this metal sort of sheeting is actually like a grate. That's a huge amount of detail. I don't know if that's going to look all that good on the recording, but if I kind of zoom out and go up here, you can see there are windows in there. Now that is something I have seen in some of the stuff I know about Japan. That's something I've seen here in the UK as well. This sort of like, I don't know what you would call that. I don't know if it's cladding. I don't want to say it is cladding. I think that's the wrong word. Again, as I've said before, I've watched a lot of grand designs. I should know this stuff, but I don't. That's totally fine. But I really do like this asset. It's really, really imposing. I like that it isn't necessarily surrounded by hedges and fences and things like that, so I can do all of that kind of detail myself. And this kind of thing honestly seems like it's set up to be expanded with modding, with the surface tool, with networks and all that kind of stuff. It's a really, really cool asset, and I think it'll look great in some slightly more urban settings. I don't think this would look the part, you know, out in the countryside. Whereas these guys, I could sort of see these working in like a little suburb. This one, definitely not. And then our final education building is the Japanese University, which has a default student capacity of 12,500, which is ridiculous. That can be expanded, by the way. We can bring that up to 16,500 students by going ahead and putting a lot of extension buildings around this. Just to be clear, It's another relatively empty lot, but once you expand it, it looks a little bit more like this. We can also throw a university library on here, which is going to give us our first sort of expansion building that's separate from everything. Now, obviously, I can snap it to the building itself, but you can see the radius here, which means this can also be snapped to a little road down here. This is, I don't know exactly what this is going to do. I've really got no idea. It doesn't say that it does anything. It's just a university library. I'm wondering if it gives us more employees. So if I put it, say, here, no, I've got no idea what that does, but I can put a bunch of them in here. So we'll do, I don't know, we'll do something like this. And that's a whole bunch of university libraries across the street, which is pretty cool looking. Honestly, really, really good looking buildings. I do love the little overhang on the roof here. That's pretty cool. Love the hedges down there. Love the different textures and colors that we have going on. And the university itself is also a really, really great looking building. Again, it feels like it is being set up a little bit to have more details and things like that added to it, which I'm totally here for. I love detailing my own buildings, and maybe that's just me. I might just be used to overdoing it with trees and plazas and things like that. This might just be how a Japanese university looks. But I will say a little like seating area in here would be really cool. And that's probably what I'll do with this asset when I get around to using it. But for now, we're going to move on to the Japanese firehouse, which has a default number of vehicles, that being 4. I couldn't find it there. It took me a second to see that. I was really starting to worry that I didn't know how the Cities 2 UI works. It does have an expansion though, which can double that and bring it up to 8 vehicles in total. And all things considered, relatively quaint looking building. I do like it. I've seen this is definitely similar. There's a video that I watched years ago on YouTube that was like a day in the life of a Japanese firefighter. And yeah, this looks kind of similar. That one at the back does as well, but we're going to get to that one. Well, right now, because that one is the Japanese fire station, which has 3 upgrades available. It starts with 10 vehicles, but we can go ahead and add a garage extension, which is going to bring it up to 15 vehicles in total. That goes at the back right about there. We have a helipad, which is going to go on the roof right about there. And we have a training facility, which is going to go right about there. That does add more employees to this building, which is fantastic. And this thing in general looks amazing. Again, the details, the textures, I'm a really, really big fan of everything that's going on with this. I really, really love this like tower in the corner. That's kind of neat. I don't know what it is. Like, give me a big brutal looking square building and put a round tower on the corner, and it's just absolute cinema as far as I'm concerned. They also have a really, really big washing line on top of it, which is pretty cool. If you know, you know, by the way. I know it's not a washing line, but yeah, it's been pointed out in some of my other videos that I may have made a mistake. I also love the inclusion of the Paradox logo. That's very cool. Next up is the Japanese police station, another relatively humble looking building. It has 6 vehicles, and that can be expanded to 12 vehicles with this garage expansion. Not really a whole lot to write home about on this one. It's humble. It's a little bit smaller. I do like the size of it, and I can think of a good few places that this thing would work, but I'm a lot more excited about the Japanese police headquarters. This thing is huge. It's ridiculous. It has 20 vehicles by default. I love this thing so much. It's so cool looking. It also has space at the back here, so you could theoretically imagine that, you know, cars are going to drive out there. You could use the invisible roads and paths and stuff like that to make that happen. It has got some upgrades such as the radio tower, which adds 5 patrol cars, because of course it does. And it has a helipad, which is going to add you might not believe this, but it's going to add a helicopter, which is so good. It's such a good looking building. I have a place in mind for where I'm going to put this in my city, and I'm very excited to get around to doing that. So this one's a little bit smaller, but I actually really appreciate that we have got a Japanese post office. We don't really get a lot of love for the postal service in Cities Skylines 2, but this is a pretty good looking little building, and I think it's a little bit smaller, I'm pretty sure, than the standard post office. It's a fair bit bigger than the small post office, but it looks like a post office, and I really like that. I absolutely do. I think it's great. I think this is also the first time I've ever seen the North American Actually, I don't know what style of post van that is. I'm used to the white one that goes around. Anyway, that's completely irrelevant. That's not new, but this is. And I like a post office, man. I really do. I have vivid memories of being a kid and going into the post office with my dad and just standing in a line of people and no one in the line has, I don't know what it is about post offices, man, but when people go there, it seems like they've never been to a post office before. They just kind of stand there and, you know, the machine is like, cashier number 4, please. And they stand there like, oh, I don't know how to count. Why am I here? People just seem to lose their mind when they go to post offices. That's completely irrelevant to this pack. This looks great. I'm losing my mind over how good this looks. Next up is something a little bit more interesting and unique, and not something I was expecting to get new in this pack, but we absolutely did. It is a Japanese radio mast. It basically transmits mobile data, radio traffic, TV signals. We have a bunch of these in City Skylines 2 already. This is just an alternative version to the ones that we already have, and it's pretty cool. I like that we're just getting more stuff in all of the different categories. And then our final 2 buildings are in the administration category, starting with the Japanese Health and Welfare Office. I probably don't need to tell you what this is an alternative version of. Again, you might not believe this, but it is essentially an alternative version of the Welfare Office. A bit smaller than the Welfare Office we might be used to, but it is a great looking building. And again, it's something that you could plop into pretty much any part of your city. You can add your own detailing to it with mods. You could take out those trees and add your own, take out the hedges and add your own. You could really make this a great little administrative building for your Sims. And I absolutely, I love it. It's such a, it's humble. It's definitely not as, I don't want to use the word exciting because that sounds insulting. I don't mean it in an insulting way. It is an understated but beautifully detailed and beautifully modeled little building. And our final service building of the day is the Japanese City Office. This thing will decrease loan interest citywide. It will decrease import costs by 2% citywide. And again, pretty cool looking building. Kind of a little more understated as well. Not a whole lot going on with this. It is more of just an office block, but we need office blocks in our cities. They make the world go around. And honestly, this thing, it's pretty good. It'll do the job. It's a city office. It does what it says on the tin or on the building or in the menu. There are also 2 new signature buildings in the Japanese region pack, starting with this one, which is the head office of a local newspaper. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because Lord have mercy. I'm not calling an ambulance for the medical emergency that will ensue from me trying to pronounce the name of this place. It does, however, improve office efficiency by 2% citywide, 5% interest in university education citywide, plus 1% university graduation chance citywide, and plus 5 well-being within a kilometer. It's a very cool looking building. And again, it's not going to look out of place in any of your downtown settings. It also has a little plaza underneath, which I absolutely love. The entire building is kind of held up by 3 pillars. Well, technically 4 if we include this one, which is very, very cool. I actually hadn't noticed that before. That's really, really cool. I like this building a lot. And finally, we have the offices of a sushi restaurant. I'm not kidding. That's genuinely what it's called. This is the headquarters of Japan's largest conveyor belt sushi chain. Many companies, including insurance companies, occupy the building. Yes, that's all right there. Plus 2% office efficiency, plus 5% interest in university education, plus 1% university graduation chance, and plus 5 well-being within 1.5 kilometers. Those first 3 are all citywide. Again, a beautiful looking building. Really, really cool looking building. And this is something, I'm pretty sure there was a pack for City Skylines 1 that added a bunch of skyscrapers. It might have just been called City Skylines skyscrapers or something like that. This is reminding me of that. Being able to get signature and unique skyscrapers for a city skyline is going to make it easier to build a city skyline in a game called Cities Skylines 2. And so I want to come back to Townsville a little bit and see if I can play around with some of these Japanese buildings. This area was blocked out for education, but I don't really think we're going to be doing that at the moment because there is education dotted through this part of the city with all of the buildings that came in the Urban Promenades creator pack. Almost forgot. what it was called. For the life of me, there's been a lot of new content for Cities 2 recently, man. It's a little hard to stay on top of sometimes, but I'm doing my best, okay? I am definitely, I'm doing my best is what I'm doing here. Now, what I'd like to do is get the Japanese police headquarters, and I want it to be right here. Annoyingly, it doesn't sit central on this little chunk of land, which is deeply upsetting to me because I wish that it would. So I'm gonna have to move this myself, but my thinking is having it back there with, you know, the city hall right in here. I think that's kind of cool. So that's gonna be my plan. It would be nice. It would be really nice if it sat in the middle of the space, but it's just not going to. So what I think I'm gonna do is place it there for the time being. And I want to use some little alleyways just to sort of mark out the footprint of this thing. So this is what, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there is what I'm looking for. And I just need to get it in the middle of that space with good old move it. So I think about there is going to be close enough. I think we could probably just shuffle it the teeniest tiny little bit there. And I think that'll do. I think we can make that work. And then this entire space, this road needs to go, this road needs to go. This road can stay for now. It is a one-way road, which is going to be slightly problematic, but I think we can make that work. And I think what we'll do is bring this guy back and go like this. We'll go to here and to here. And then I just need to get rid of that little nubbin of road in there is going to be a problem. So we'll get rid of you. And then I think this road can just be changed into just a little two-way road is probably fair enough. I think that'll absolutely work. We have some pedestrian roads going in here. I might change those out actually and just have this entire, you know what? This entire space is going to be pedestrianized. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but it's what we're doing because it's what we're doing. I think we'll just make it all pedestrianized, and now nobody is driving around the police headquarters, which might be problematic. I think what I could do is maybe just have the front road here be something you can drive on so the police cars can actually get out of the building. But otherwise, I think that's a fantastic spot for our police headquarters. And you know, I think we're going to put this newspaper office tower right about there. And I would like the headquarters of a sushi restaurant to be in here somewhere as well. Not really too sure where this one's going to go. It is a fair bit larger than what we've been dealing with before. And I don't want it to be, I don't think there is what I'm looking for. I think back here is kind of more what I'm looking for, or even just back here could kind of be the spot for it. That's not so bad, although it does kind of create just this wall of buildings, which I sort of want to avoid. So that's kind of why I wanted it to be sort of sideways. We could rotate it around and it could just live right there, which is not the worst spot in the world. A little bit further back, but it's not creating that same wall that we were seeing before. And I suppose it is near a relatively major road, which given a building of this size would kind of make sense. I could also put it down on this avenue, which I think is what I'm going to do. I think we're going to move it away from that avenue. I think it's going to live sort of in here somewhere. Maybe I want to say that way around is a bit more interesting because it has the front of the building here. And I don't mind that. We do need some slightly smaller towers in the back though. Okay, so I wasn't planning on spending the past hour or so placing all of these buildings by hand, but that is indeed what I ended up doing. And it turns out the Japanese pack is tricky. It's a little misleading, and it's not misleading in any kind of like false advertising kind of way or any controversial way. It's just misleading in that appearances can be deceiving. I was under the impression it would be easier to build a sort of city a very dense kind of downtown looking city with all of this stuff. And in a way you can go in here with these towers and they look great. And I'm very happy with how this looks. It's not much of a skyline, but it does the job. There are obviously some buildings in here that are not from the Japanese pack. And I have done some recoloring in some of these apartments as well. And I'm thinking of doing some more recoloring in some of these apartments just to change up some of the colors that we have going on. There's a lot of repetition here, for example, that I don't really love, but that's fine. That's something I can kind of deal with. Same with these guys back here. A whole lot of the same building was used over and over. I could, for example, though, copy this one and paste it to this guy just to sort of change things up a little bit. I kind of like doing that. And I might do the same down here just to sort of change up these buildings as well. These buildings are all recolorable. You can go around all of them. It's a little tricky. You don't really know which color is which, but you can absolutely recolor them, and that's going to be super useful for changing things up just a little bit to make this look a little bit less repetitive. Now, in fairness, this pack was never advertised as something that's going to give you sort of the urban promenade vibe with all of these buildings available. That was never really the plan for this pack, from what I can tell. It's just that this is sort of what I want to do with it, and I think it worked. I don't think it's bad by any means. I don't really have any complaints in that regard. I'm going to put some things on this building though, because I think that's going to look kind of cool. And yeah, I'm generally quite happy with how the whole thing has come together. We have a little fire station back here. We have a little hospital down here. The point of this video isn't really to show off my builds or my abilities or my lack thereof. I just kind of wanted to use these assets to make a little space like this, and it's not bad. It's definitely got its own character. I've talked about that before with regards to how the different creator packs, especially the Urban Promenades one, gives it its own vibe by virtue of these rooftops. The Japanese one is quite distinct as well. It's definitely very different to most of what we've got before. I would say these buildings in particular are not far off of some of the apartment buildings you might see in and around the UK, but that's fine. And also I'm looking at this green that's going on back here, and I kind of love the look of that building. So I kind of want more of that going on with these guys. I think that's very, very cool looking. The green inner walls on these apartments is very, very cool. Over on this one, I'd love to find out which color here is the green. It's not that one, which is fine. Is it this one? I think it is this one. So if I copy you and paste you there, oh, I can have the little balconies be green as well. Do I want to do that? I kind of do. I think I do. I think I want the balconies to be green, but I was kind of thinking I might change it to blue. Just sort of have a set of green and blue buildings here. That might be kind of cool. I like that a lot. I really do. So I'm going to just copy this around to all of these buildings as well. And this is the kind of thing that you can get lost in with Cities Skylines II. It's just going around, and I mean, obviously it's a code mod. It's probably recolor is probably not going to be on consoles, unfortunately, if and when that finally comes around. But I love this. I really do. I'm very, very happy with this pack. I'm very, very happy with it. I kind of want to spend some time figuring out how everything goes together a little bit better than I have so far. I do think there's a little bit of work to be done there on my part. I think I've got some things to figure out and come to terms with regards to how this pack actually works, because I definitely don't think I'm using it to its fullest potential at the moment. But that's kind of the fun with learning new packs and using new packs, is figuring out what you can do with them and how they work and how you can make cool stuff with them. I think I'm getting quite good at the UK pack, for example, whereas there's other packs that I'm still kind of iffy with. I think the German one, for example, I want to do a little bit more with it. I've definitely not done as much with it as I think I could, although I'm very, very happy with this district over here. And the same goes with the French pack. I think this is a good start. I think what I initially built to show off the French pack was fine, but I think this is better. Same with the German pack. I think what I built initially was honestly not that great in hindsight, and I think this is a lot better. So I'm really enjoying this. I don't want to call it a series, but this process of showing off new stuff is giving me an opportunity to just experiment with building whatever this is. Anyway, I think I have said all I can say and done all I can do today with this Japanese region pack. I like it a lot, honestly. I mentioned already, but I'll say again, I do think there is a degree of learning that's going to come with this. I don't think I'm going to kind of pick this one up quite as easily as I would something like the UK region pack, but I still like this, and kind of getting a look at it like this from sort of street level and trying to avoid the bus that's following my bus. I love the details. I really, really do. I know I keep saying that, but just the different textures and details that come with all of these different packs. It's very, very cool. It's very, very interesting. It's a fun challenge, and it's free. That's the thing, right? These region packs are free, and I've seen a couple of people talking about whether or not they are sort of ruining the creator packs a little bit. I know a couple of different creators have talked about whether or not the creator packs, that being Urban Promenades and Modern Architecture, are really worth it, given that the region packs have so much content in them and they are free for anybody with Paradox mods to go and download. And I think that's a really valid question that I don't have an answer to, and I don't like not having an answer to it because I'm kind of just throwing it into the void a little bit, but I'd be curious about your opinion on that as an idea. Do the region packs, that being the Japanese one, the UK one, the German one, and the French one so far, do they kind of negatively impact the creator packs, the ones that you have to pay for? Have you picked up the creator packs, or are you just sticking with the free region packs? It's definitely an interesting question and an interesting thing to think about, and I'm going to spend some time thinking about it myself. Now, to be clear, that's not to say that the guys that worked on the creator packs, again, Modern Architecture and Urban Promenades, that's not to say that those packs are bad. That's not to say that the content within them is bad. I just wonder, are we being spoiled a little bit with these region packs? And I would be really curious to see what the general opinion of those creator packs happens to be. And I'd be very curious to see what Colossal Order and Paradox are going to do going forward, because I do think it's going to be really interesting seeing, you know, what happens when more paid DLC starts to come out for Cities Skylines 2. It also begs the question, was it maybe part of the plan that the region packs would have originally been paid content and they were sort of switched to free releases to kind of make amends after the dodgy launch of Cities Skylines 2? I don't know. And that's kind of getting into sort of conspiracy theorist level stuff that I'm not really interested in doing, but I'm curious to see, once the region packs are done, you know, what's going to be next for Cities 2? What's going to be the attitude for paid content going forward? Because it's a Paradox published game. It is going to have paid DLC, and it's going to have a lot of it, because that's kind of what Paradox does. And for the most part, the Cities 1 DLC was generally always pretty good value. You always get something interesting out of it. I don't think there was this much free content for Cities Skylines 1, so that's where my question comes from. Anyway, I think that's going to do us for today. I should also mention, I might mention it in the intro, I don't know, but the audio for the gameplay in this has been a lot quieter, or non-existent, for the entirety of this video, because there, at the time of recording anyway, seems to be a bug in one of the Japanese assets where there is like one of the ambient sounds just plays at full volume. So for me recording this, my game is turned way down. I can still hear the trams going by, but I can't hear much of anything else. So I don't know what it's going to sound like in the edit. I'm just letting you know that there might not be much game audio for the entirety of this video, and I should probably mention it at the start, but here we are at the end. Anyway, that is going to do us for today. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.